How?
By sucking with style. Embrace the suckiness. Just say, I love that I suck.
Yep.
Off you go.
Off you go. Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Entrepreneurial Family Man podcast. I am Chris Niemeyer, here with my good friends Christopher McCluskey, Michael McGreevy, and Jamie Slingerland. And we're just four guys who are crazy about our wives. We love our kids. We want to kill it in business. And this show is just focused on identifying how to be better at those areas, a safe place to have those conversations where we want to be better husbands, we want to be better fathers, better businessmen, but not at the expense of these important relationships. And so today we just want to focus on a topic that, let's be frank, a lot of guys don't want to talk about vulnerabilities or transparencies or the fact that I'm not doing really well in this area right now. Maybe I was a month ago, but this particular season's tough in business or in marriage or in parenting these kids. And so this is a great topic, though, to discuss as guys. How can we address this? And then how can we move to action in these areas and lift each other up? So Michael McGreevy, I'm going to turn it over to you here and say, let's unpack this a bit more.
We don't want to be stuck. And I know whenever I've struggled with something over a long period of time, it's because I didn't want to look at it because I was ashamed of it, frankly. And just the topic being brought up in conversation made me uncomfortable and made me want to hide from that and change the subject. So if I'm going to change, if I'm going to improve in an area, if I'm going to grow, I have to at least be willing to talk about it and acknowledge that it's there. That's why we're having this conversation, is we all have those areas in our life. Depending on who that is, it's going to be in a different area. And there's nobody who's got every area of life nailed. That has become abundantly clear. It would be cool just to figure out what are those areas that we need to grow in, and let's call them out and start to see some progress in them.
I think that's a key word there in terms of acknowledging. You know, Chris, we're talking about this topic beforehand, and you came up with a great acronym, FOE, right? Facing your foe, which really the foe is within us. But right. Talk about that in terms of what does FOE stand for, which will get us to these 3 points and unpacking this important topic.
We're talking about walking toward the parts of self that we really don't want to have to look at, and yet we really badly need to look at if we're going to do any kind of growth in things that matter the most. So I started playing with a little acronym there, and FOE was it, F-O-E, and I just broke it down simply as this: face it, own it, embrace it. So it's this very intentional walking toward, Mike, what you were just saying a moment ago is like everything in us wants to turn around and run away from it. Don't even look at it, just, maybe if we don't talk about it, maybe it'll go away. No, face it and then own it. Like, ouch, yeah, that hurts, but it really is my reality. I am not going to be able to get away from that reality. If I do nothing with it a month from now, it's still going to be my reality. I got to face it. I got to own it. And then I got to embrace it. I got to go ahead and move toward that thing that I want to run from, because only in moving toward it will I move through it to a better place of growth.
Yeah, that's a great explanation of this, Chris, in terms of that sequential, right? It's very sequential. You've got to face it first, right? So let's talk about this point number one, facing it. Or Michael, you mentioned the word acknowledge. Facing this fact that work-life balance, integration, whatever you want to call that, right? I think we talked about this idea of a three-legged stool. Typically, you're going to have one stool that's shaved off a little, one piece of that stool is shaved off a little bit. It's a little teetering, right?
Wobbly, right?
A little wobbly. I mean, that just kind of feels like this EFM lifestyle sometimes. So, Jamie, when you talk about facing this concept, where are you in this in terms of your marriage or in the business or in parenting? Where do you wobble?
When you were talking about that as the intro, Niemeyer, I was thinking of the Henry Cloud quote, "We change when the pain of remaining the same is greater than the pain of change." I wobble because I'm a part of the EFM crew. We talk about things every week where I have to be honest and say, "Ooh, I could really use some some help in that area all the time, all the time. In the business, sometimes I wobble in the marriage relationship with Ruthie sometimes, and then the same way with my kids. I'm guilty as charged on all three of those domains, depending on the day or the week or the hour or the minute. I would probably feel like I was doing really great in all three of them if I didn't pay attention to them.
Welcome to the Wobbly Stool Club, Jamie. I'm also a member. I'm actually thinking of this old Jim Carrey movie, Liar, Liar. Jamie, you know the scene I'm talking about. By the way, not the most wholesome movie. I wouldn't suggest you go watch the whole movie. The scene is hilarious. This guy walks around the room because he just has this new confidence and he calls out everybody's major, obvious shortcoming one at a time. I think he goes around to 20 different people. You're old. You have gingivitis and bad breath. You have a hairpiece and you think nobody notices. And he just goes around the room and calls it all out. Everybody's dying laughing. So I think that's another piece here to acknowledge. What you might be holding and hiding and think nobody knows and that you're ashamed of, everyone or most people probably already know what's going on with you. So let's not even try to pretend anymore. That's not helping us in any way.
Our wives definitely know that about us, right?
That's right.
Big time.
No, I love that. And that's a classic scene in that movie, but it really does underscore this point that, hey, we all have stuff going on. And I think we've talked about it before. If you're married, you have marriage issues. If you're parenting, you probably have parenting issues, right? And if you're a businessman, you definitely have business issues at times. So the fact that we can just say that and be in the safe spot of acknowledging it, facing it, and then say, okay, what do I do about that? And, Chris, to your point, number 2 here, owning it. Okay, I've got this issue. I'm wobbly in this area right now. What do I do about this particular area? How do you approach that idea of owning it, Chris?
In facing the struggles I had as a businessman, realizing I don't even know what I don't know. I haven't had a single course in business. I was terrible at mathematics, statistics, economics, anything having to do with anything remotely business-wise. I just had to face up like, okay, if I'm going to start my own private practice, I better really willingly admit I don't know what I'm doing. And so I just aggressively sought out a whole lot of help. I interviewed other private practitioners. I read a ton of books and subscribed to business magazines and read them cover to cover. But I went downtown to the city when I was filing my paperwork, and they told me about SCORE, the Service Corps of Retired Executives. I got somebody from SCORE to work with me as a mentor. And I went to my pastor. And I told him, I'm starting this clinical practice. It's for Christians. I don't know what I'm doing. Is there somebody on our board of trustees who might serve as a mentor? Oh, yeah, I got just the guy.
Awesome.
He set me up with Joe Cotton, and that guy took me to breakfast every single week for years. And he wouldn't even let me buy him breakfast. We just talked business. He was a wildly successful businessman. I met with him every week, learning all the things that I didn't know. I mean, there's other things like that, like mastermind groups. I've had 8 different coaches and going to conferences. This face it, own it, embrace it thing, I love the way that's kind of sticking in my mind now as I think about it. Any challenge that we have as men, if we will face it head on and own it as something that we've got to address. Embracing that just means, well, what else can I access? What other resources are there? Who could help me? Staying in that learner mindset, we can do any number of things.
I resonate strongly with that because you have mercy on yourself when you're struggling, right? When the stool's wobbling, instead of being shameful and ignoring it, you can say, well, there's a reason for it wobbling. I'm lacking the experience. I'm lacking the resources. And acknowledge the fact that I'm weak here and say, I'm sure as heck not going to stay there, but I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't exist. I know, McCluskey, you love that old country song, right? Ignore it until it'll go away. You going to sing that for us?
Yeah. No.
You could also have spent a lot of time saying how it's not your fault and explaining like, well, nobody ever taught me this, or this wasn't a part of my training in college, so it's not my fault that it's this way. It's easy to spend a lot of time in that avoiding just coming to terms with the fact that this is what it is and this is my starting point, and I don't want to stay at my starting point. So I'm going to take a step forward toward getting some help. And to see how you reached out and got that mentor and lined that up and met with him every week, that's awesome. That's just an awesome example of how to approach an area that you want to grow in.
When we got married, we knew when the honeymoon was over. Sometimes it was on the honeymoon and the honeymoon was already over. It's like, oh, this is going to be a lot harder. And the parenting thing, I think we almost like get handed a script, like we know it's going to be really awesome when we're in the delivery room and holding the baby for the first time and pictures are being snapped and, the in-laws in the shower and everything. And then it's like, wow, this is the umpteenth night that we've gotten zero sleep and we got baby number 2 on the way. And you start to realize this parenting thing is a whole lot harder than I had any idea. So whether we came from a great background or in many cases not so great, what do you do when it's the marriage stuff and the parenting stuff that's screaming, you don't know what you're doing, but you better figure it out?
Totally. Yeah. I've heard people say, when my baby was born, I thought I saw the face of God. And I kind of felt bad because I'm like, the baby that I saw come out, his head was folded and hairy. And if that's what God looks like, I think I want to change religions.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's not what it's not the way that a lot of people portray it before you dive in. So every story is going to be different and every struggle is going to be different. I like that, McCluskey.
Yeah, and it's a great question to ask, Chris, because absolutely. I mean, as a parent, as a new father, right? I remember after the first couple of days at home going, where the heck is the parenting manual on this kid? Like, did I leave it at the hospital or something? I mean, how do you deal with him waking up every 2 hours and this, that, and the other? And then, of course, you layer on more kids and it just becomes more complex. So clearly, I think any guy can identify with that in the fatherhood role. And Chris, I'm going to go back to what you talked about earlier too, because what you shared totally makes sense. For me, it was opposite in terms of business and marriage. So I got married very early, got thrust into this business world of super successful guys and was able to spend, a lot of time around all these guys, learned a ton about the business and felt like, I'm doing pretty well at this in terms of learning and being able to apply it. But I didn't spend nearly the time focused on my marriage and on learning how to pour into my wife and how to be a better husband. And so, we hit that tipping point years into our marriage where, whoa, things aren't going well here because I didn't own the fact that I don't know what I'm doing here. And I need to learn how to be better at this whole thing called being a husband. Right. And so it took years. It took reading books. It took reaching out to mentors. Like you reached out to business mentors. We reached out to people in the church and others that said, okay, we don't know what we're doing here. We're a little immature in this thing called marriage and we want help. We own the fact that, all right, things aren't what they should be. How can we improve them? So I think for some guys, it sounds tough to even say that. It sounds tough to even have that thought or to verbalize that to someone else. But if you're listening, that alone, that thought, that reality that you're owning it, you're far ahead of most husbands because you want to improve it. You want to seek help to move forward and improve.
Chris, that was a good example of then taking it that third level too. Once you owned it and realized, man, I got to face this, then that embracing it. The fact that you two did go together to in a very humble state to those who could help you in the church and say, man, we need some help. That's embracing it. That's just admitting, I don't know, but I want to know. And there's always people who will help us if we will take those steps. That's awesome.
We've talked about it before, right? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. McCluskey, I definitely have found what you said to be true, that there's people in every domain that have had success, and they're just looking for somebody to pay it forward to. They're asking God, send somebody to me that I can pour into and that I can help them, because they feel so blessed with having been on the receiving end of that. It's really easy in our society with books and, I could never have the kind of marriage or the kind of business or be the parent that so-and-so have. There's just that tendency, right, for us to feel so much shame that we're not willing to start at the bottom.
That's good, Jamie. And I hear you saying something too. As you look out and compare your situation to someone else's situation, you're only seeing one little snapshot of their entire story in that realm of life. How can you possibly compare your whole life to that one little snapshot? So what is it for you? It's not so much how well do you stack up against this one little snapshot. It's what is your vision for that area of your life? And are you moving toward it?
Yeah, Michael, those are good questions to ask. And I like what you both shared there about not comparing to someone else's, because, someone else's A+ or their ninth inning, we might be in the first or second inning, right? And so make sure that you're aware of that. And I think so many times guys can look at, well, you know what, we've had a mediocre marriage, or I'm a mediocre dad, and that's just the way it's going to be because of past failures. No, don't accept that. The fact that you want to own it and get better, embrace the idea, right? Chris, to your point, embracing, you're going to be the only husband that wife of yours has. You're going to be the only father that those children have. What kind of experience do you want them to have in their life? Where do you want to move toward? And start moving toward that. I'm thinking of there's this scene from Keep the Faith. I think it's Ben Stiller, and he's a Jewish rabbi teaching these young boys, right, in the synagogue, and they're playing some instruments. I think this one little boy is playing a little drum, and he just clearly does not have the beat, right? But he wants to. You can just tell this kid wants to have the beat, and Ben Stiller in his role sits down with them, and he says, you're not great right now, but you want to get better. And I love that. And let's talk about this. And the kid's just like, yeah, but I just suck. And Ben takes the drum, right? And he starts a little beat, and he goes, let's just use that. He goes he's got this beat, and it says, I love that I suck. I love that I suck. I love that I suck. And he
suck.
And he hands it to the boy, and the boy finally gets the beat because he's realizing, okay, I'm going to own this and embrace the fact that right now I suck, but I want to get better. I want to move toward this area of improvement. And I think we all want that for these domains of our lives as EFM guys.
Niemeyer, I love that metaphor, and I think it's perfect for the acronym that McCluskey did with the facing your foe. To face it, own it, and embrace it. There's just a level of humility and just a posture of owning it without having shame, and just saying, this is where I'm at, but I'm sure as heck not going to stay there. And that's what everybody needs to have success in any of these domains. So I can hear the conga drum in my mind right now, baby.
So what about you? As you pick up that proverbial drum and start beating it to your own beat, about where do you want to improve? We've talked about facing the foe that really can be within us sometimes, this idea of a wobbly stool needing to improve. Face the fact of where you are in these domains. And then this idea of owning it. Acknowledge where you might need improvement. Embrace the fact that you want to move to this area of being a better husband, being a more present father, a businessman who knows what he's doing and where he's going. Take the action necessary. Have those conversations within yourself as a couple and move toward that area of becoming a better man for your wife, for your children.
Thank you for listening to the Entrepreneurial Family Man Podcast. Visit EFMLife.com to connect with us and others like you who are pursuing success in enterprise, family, and marriage.
Bara, bara, Elohim, Elohim, et ha'aretz v'ayta.
Okay. It's okay. Take a break.
I suck. They're gonna take away my yarmulke.
No. You don't suck.
I suck.
Okay. Yes, you do. You suck. But that's okay. You're supposed to suck. This isn't a talent contest. This is a rite of passage. I mean, happens in all cultures. It's about you being 13 years old. God knew that your voice was going to change when you're 13. There's a reason why you got to do your Haftorah at this age. It's a challenge. God is challenging you. He's calling you a chump. So you got to come back at him. You got to say, hey, Hashem, You think you can scare me with a little biblical Hebrew just because my balls haven't dropped yet? I'm serious. You got to show them what Alan Klein's made of.
How?
By sucking with style. Embrace the suckiness. Just say, I love that I suck.
I love that I suck.
Good, but own it. Say it. I love that I suck.
I love that I suck. I love that I suck.
Good. You play.
I love that I suck.
Keep going with that.
I love that I suck.
Okay, good. I'll